This is a ball. This ball represents one specific pitch or sound. If I held it way up here, it would be a very high note. And if I held it down here, it would represent a note that was very
low.
In sheet music, the ball is called a note head. Each note head represents one specific pitch or note. Pitches can be high or low, close together or far apart, or repeat. When we look at sheet music, the note heads give us a general idea of what the sequence of pitches or notes will sound like. Reading from left to right, this example might sound something like this. So by following the shape that the note heads make as they go up and down, we get a rough idea of what the sequence of pitches will sound like. But how do we know which exact notes to play on the piano? Well, first of all, we need to know what names to call each of the piano keys, and for now, we'll just be looking at the white keys. Musical pitches are named using the musical alphabet, and that goes from A to G. The very bottom of the piano starts at A, and here's another A right here. And we just go A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Now once it passes G, all we do is loop back to A, B, C, and so on. To help us remember where each white note on the piano is, we can look at the black keys. Now the black keys form a pattern of groups of 2 and 3. Notice that the 4 white notes surrounding the groups of 3 black keys are always F, G, A, and B. So when we go up on the piano, which is to the right, we go forward in the alphabet, F, G, A, B, and if we go down, then we go backwards, B, A, G, F. And the 3 white keys surrounding the groups of 2 black keys are always C, D, and E, and then if we go down, we go backwards, E, D, C. Okay, now that we know the musical alphabet and what the white notes on the piano are named, we can move back to our note heads. Remember that these give us a general idea of what direction the notes are going and how close or far away the pitches are from each other. But what if I put the letter names inside the note heads? This tells us exactly what notes to play, as well as the general direction. But if you've ever looked at sheet music before, you know that the note names are not written inside the note heads. And that's where these 5 lines come in. This is the staff. It has 5 lines and 4 spaces. Understanding the staff is the key to reading music. Notice that note heads can be on a line, so it looks kind of like a shish kebab, or it can be on a space like a note hamburger. If I go from a line note to the very next space note, this means these are neighbor notes and they're right next to each other. Same thing if I go from a space note to a line note. And as long as I stay with this line space pattern, I'm simply going from one key right to the very next on the keyboard. So let's look at Ode to Joy again, and I'm going to give you the first note. It's a B. We can see that the first 2 notes are the same note because they're both written on the same line. Then what does it do? We go from a line note to the next space note above, so we know it's the very next key above our starting note. Then we go from the space note to the next line, so again, it's the very next note higher. And here we see the same thing happening, except the notes are going down. Go ahead and put your right hand middle finger on any B on the piano and let your other fingers just fall in line so that each finger gets a white key. Notice that I'm playing on my fingertips, except for my thumb, which is kind of playing on the top side part. Also notice that I have a relaxed curve shape to my hand with plenty of space underneath. So I'm not gripping the keys tightly, I'm just resting with that space underneath. Also notice that all three joints of my fingers here, here, and here are structurally sound. So there's no caving in like this there or this. Okay? As you're starting out, don't worry too much about getting the perfect hand position shape. We'll practice this together in lessons down the road. Just be aware of what it's supposed to look like and see how close you can get to it. Go ahead and pause the video. With your right hand middle finger on any B, read and play this melody. Okay, how'd it go? Let's check it out and play it together. If you want to make it a little harder, try saying the note names out loud as you play. Good. Now, instead of me telling you what note to start on, we have a kind of code that tells us where the notes are on the staff. This is called the treble clef, and its squiggly line here surrounds the line where G is, which is line number 2. So if I put a note head on this line, we know it's a G as long as we see the treble clef here. But we have to get even more specific. There are 7 different G's on the piano, and this note head can't represent them all. It represents just this one G, right here towards the middle of the piano, that we call treble G. If you have a piano with a piano maker written on it like Yamaha or Steinway, the G is towards the right of the text. Or you can count up 4 G's from the bottom and you'll land at your treble G. As a general rule of thumb, the notes in the treble staff are usually played with the right hand because the treble staff represents the higher notes. And the left hand, lower notes, are usually played in the bass staff, which has a bass clef that looks like this. Remember how the treble clef pointed us towards the G line? Well, the bass clef directs us to the bass F line. See how these 2 circles surround line 4? That's where bass F lives on the staff, and it's here on the piano. So now we know treble G and bass F. But before we move on, I want to point out another important note on the piano, and that is middle C. It's right here below treble G by the group of 2 black keys. We've already learned about the treble clef and the bass clef. When we have 2 staves, staves is plural for staff, we call it the grand staff. There's a nice squiggly line that connects the 2 staves to make the grand staff. Middle C has its own special line right in the center of the 2 staves. It can be written in the treble clef, towards the bottom or the bass clef towards the top. Both notes represent the one note on the piano that is middle C. Now we know where bass F, middle C, and treble G are on the piano and on the grand staff. To figure out all the other notes, we can use the line to space, space to line rule to find neighboring notes. Let's start down at bass F. It's a line note. Now I'm going to write in the next space note above, and I know this is just the next note up or forward in the musical alphabet, so it's a G. So we have this G on a space, and if I write in the next line above it, we get an A because after G in the musical alphabet comes A. And then B and our middle C that we already know. Let's do the same thing in the treble clef for our right hand, but going down. Starting at line note treble G, let's go down to the next space below. Since we're going down, we have to think backwards in the musical alphabet. Then the next line note down is E, then D, then our line note middle C. Go ahead and pause the video again and play Ode to Joy on the grand staff. You'll have to find your starting pitch by first determining where the treble G is, and then using the line space, space line rule to go up to your starting pitch. Remember to use your right hand middle finger on the first note. All right, very good. So those are the basic fundamentals of pitch and note reading. We look for the general direction the notes are headed, how far apart they are from each other, and then we also use the treble and bass clef to specify exactly where the note is on the piano. There are more advanced things to eventually know, like notes written way up here, or these symbols, but that's for another lesson. For now, download the note name cheat sheet below and try to memorize where the notes are on the piano, especially our three important notes, treble G, middle C, and bass F. You can also print out some blank manuscript paper, which I've linked below, to practice drawing your treble and bass clefs, and maybe even write out a melody. I also have note name practice worksheets for you to download and print. Try to complete these without your note name cheat sheet. To become fluent at reading music, you'll eventually have to memorize where these notes are on the staff and on the piano, so that you can quickly recall them without having to think about it. For now though, don't worry too much about that. Just get used to seeing and analyzing the direction of the pitches and nail down those three important notes, treble G, middle C, and bass F. The last thing I want you to do is to start consciously listening to music. It doesn't matter what kind, but I want you to specifically listen for pitch. Notice when pitches get higher, lower, repeat, or jump around a lot. After listening to a song a few times, see if you can figure out the melody on the piano. And a big bonus if you can also write out the music pitches in the treble staff. Just see how far you can take it. Remember that I am here for you. Let me know if you have any questions and I will do my very best to answer. Otherwise, I'll see you at our next lesson when we explore rhythm. If you found this helpful, please go ahead and like this video. And as a newbie YouTuber, I'd love it if you would subscribe. Thanks, and I'll see you at your next lesson.